And we are live for yet another back porch session here. Special Father's Day edition. Wanted to come to you on Sunday morning because I'm up bright and early. As you can see, the red rocks of Sedona are right over my back shoulder. The sun comes up early. I've been up since about 4:50. Excited to spend some time with you this morning. If you've been here before, you know the drill. Whether you're joining us live or you're joining the replay version of this, jump in, share your name, your city, your state, your town, where in the world you're joining us from, and at least one thing you are grateful for today. I'll tell you today, I'm grateful for my dad. My dad passed away in 2012, but he was my hero. And this morning, the day my father passed away, I remember driving around and I saw more red cardinals than I've ever seen in my life. And so that memory has stuck with me that anytime I see a red cardinal, it's my dad. I came out here on the back deck this morning and this tree right over the corner looking at me was a red cardinal. My dad was winking at me this morning. So I'm grateful for that. What are you grateful for today? Welcome, David Turner. Happy Father's Day to you as well. David, you're joining us from north of the border in Canada. David, what's one thing you are grateful for this morning? And again, as you join us, name, city, state, town, where in the world you're joining us from. We regularly get people from around the world, and at least one thing you are grateful for today, because I'm going to tell you there is enough bullshit on social media, in the news, etc. And those scarcity pimps around the world would have you believe that everything is worse, that the world is worse than it's ever been, and they are dead wrong. So let's start a gratitude chain this morning, an abundance chain, because having an abundance mindset starts with gratitude, a sense of gratitude. So what's one thing you're grateful for this morning? Michelle from Houston, Texas, on this Father's Day, I'm grateful for my dad. Michelle, thank you so much. I'm grateful you are joining us here this morning. And as people join us again, name, city, state, town, where in the world you're joining us from, at least one thing you are grateful for. I'm also grateful for this view. I get to look in the camera and see this view over my back shoulder. Mark Stern, happy to be back. Nice red rocks. It's even more beautiful in real life. Absolutely. This is our home. Well, we're going to travel around in July and August, but this is going to be our home through January, at least. So Mark from New York, grateful to be a father of a happy and healthy child. Absolutely. I kissed my wife this morning and I told her, thank you for making me a dad, right? My 4 children, I would just do anything for them. Our daughter's 15 and our sons are 12, 10, and 7. And, my birthday comes and goes, all that. Father's Day is my favorite day because I get to think about my dad, but I also get to really relish in being a father, which I love so much. Hello and happy Father's Day. I'm grateful to have my entire family here for barbecue. Sadly, I lost my father this year, and you can especially feel it on Father's Day. I'm sorry for your loss. But I'm happy that you have the memory of your father and that you get to spend that time with your kids today. So thank you so much. I'm trying to see who's joining us. Sometimes LinkedIn doesn't even let me see. David, grateful to for the opportunity to be a father of 3 extraordinary girls. Absolutely. Gustav, greetings from Estonia. I'm grateful for the lovely weather. Well, hello across the pond. As I said, this is awesome. We get people from around the world. And Larry wrote that. So Larry, thank you for joining us. And Larry, you join us every time we go live. So thank you very much. By the way, one thing I want to give a shout out. You see this web address, kurtzblog.com. Go check it out. Subscribe. Something we have up there, we're going to be launching a private podcast project, meaning we're not going to rely on iTunes and all that. If you want to subscribe. We deliver it right to your inbox starting July 1. We have a new audio series called Fear, Love, and Creativity. Interviewing folks like Randy Gage, 4 times New York Times best-selling author, Hall of Fame keynote speaker, Bob Berg, author, co-author of the Go-Giver series of books, and more. We have neuroscientists, doctors, and we're going to be looking at the 2 most powerful emotional states. One is fear, one is love. And in order to allow your creative flow to be unleashed, is it better to be in a state of fear or love? Because what we've seen over the past year, what we've seen throughout history, is that decision making based on fear can do much, much more damage to yourself and those around you. Someone yesterday asked, well, what are some examples of that? Holocaust, Japanese internment, hell, lockdowns around the country. We now know, around the world, we now know that the lockdowns didn't work. And the damage they are causing still in some areas, suicide rates, mental health, other things, people not going outside, right? When you make decisions from a state of fear, you cause great damage, and you certainly don't allow your creative thinking to come forth. So go to kurtzblog.com. You'll see a post up there. You can subscribe to Fear, Love, and Creativity. July 1, we'll start sending out those episodes right to you. Dr. Dave joins us from Houston, Texas. Happy Father's Day, y'all. I'm grateful for both my father, Al, an Army vet who I lost in 2019, and my stepdad, Mike, who I lost in 2017. I was blessed to have two dads who loved me so much, and I was so close to both. Dr. Dave, thanks again for joining us. Grateful you are here. Grateful you join us on a regular basis. Thank you, everyone, for coming in, sharing your city, your state, your name, your town, where in the world you're joining us from, and one thing you're grateful for. If you're joining the replay, welcome. Whether you're joining this later today or tomorrow, don't let that stop you from jumping in, sharing your gratitude, your name, and where you're joining us from. So I want to jump in today to the first topic, and it's the top. My dad taught me a lot of lessons, and unfortunately, he passed away in 2012. I read about him in my book, 5 Pillars of the Freedom Lifestyle. He was my hero. And unfortunately, when he was alive, you're coming up and he gives you advice, and Dad, I know better. I know better. I know better. That's advice from 30, 40 years ago. He grew up during the Great Depression. And only when he passed, sometimes years later, hey, Joe, have fun at your training, do I start to really take the advice that he gave me while he was alive. So he gave me a lot of tidbits. And I write about this in my book, and if you've heard it before, I apologize, but I wanted to share it today, especially with those who need to hear this again. Back in about 83, so my dad was a lot older than I was, and he passed away in 2012 at age 83. And back in like 83, 84, so I was 8 or 9 years old, my dad had been president of some very large companies, and he lost his job. And now he was in his mid 50s. Now at that point, 83, 84, the economy was coming back, biggest economic recovery, right, in history, but it still wasn't quite there. I mean, the 70s had done some economic damage, inflation, et cetera, but it was coming back. But it wasn't fully back yet. And my dad was in his mid 50s, lost his job, the president, CEO. No one wanted to hire a new president, new CEO in his mid 50s. And my dad didn't want to settle. He didn't want to, after working for these large companies in leadership, didn't want to come back and work for someone else. So he didn't settle. You know what he did? He got a newspaper route. My dad, who had been the president, the CEO, rollouts. My dad has a patent for all the switches, or had on the Boeing 777. Had designed technology on fighter jets, worked on the space program. He got a fucking newspaper route in his mid 50s. And I remember he would get me up. He and my mom would get me up at like 3 or 4 in the morning. We'd pile on the station wagon. I'd go to the facility and I'd put the newspapers in the bags. My hands would be all black. I hated it. It was cold. I was like 8 or 9 years old. And then we'd go around and he would drive and I'd throw the newspaper out. Now you may say, oh, is the lesson there to work hard and never give up? Sure. My dad did what he needed to do to make money for the family. But the most important lesson is this. He didn't settle. He was a president and CEO. He didn't want to work for someone else, and he didn't settle. You know what he did? He didn't complain about ageism and all these things. He didn't turn himself into a victim. And I know turning ourselves into a victim is something that is so popular in society today. Hell, look at the news thing, or whatever they call it, on LinkedIn or Twitter, whatever your social media. Oh my gosh, we're all supposed to be victims of imposter syndrome. We're victims of this or that. When you turn yourself into a victim, you're excusing yourself from the decisions you make. My dad didn't turn himself into a victim, didn't complain about ageism. He got a newspaper route until he said, listen, I'm going to stop looking for a job and making myself into a victim of someone else. He reinvented himself in his mid 50s, became a management consultant, and went on to have a 25-year career doing amazing things, running his own company. He did it in his mid-50s. Shouldn't have been able to do that. Had never run a company. He turned it around. So for those of you who feel like you're a victim of something else, who wonder, can I make it out there? Can I start my own company? The answer is within you. The answer is up to you. My father taught me that lesson. He didn't get the memo that perhaps in his mid-50s, he wasn't supposed to complain, that he wasn't supposed to be a victim, that he was just supposed to sit around and get a check and complain about ageism and then go work for someone else. He decided to turn it around. He decided to reinvent himself. He decided to start his own company, yes, to take care of his family. He built a free and fulfilling career. You know what else happened over that next 25 years? He was at my cross-country meets. He was at my games. He had learned while he was unemployed that he was missing spending time with his family. So he not only reinvented himself, started a new company after he got a newspaper route because he didn't want to settle working for someone else in a permanent job that sucked. That's the number one lesson I learned from my dad. Yeah, you got to do what you have to do to survive. But don't settle. Don't settle. That's the number one lesson I learned from my dad I wanted to share with you today. That lesson I learned from him was worth more than any lesson, super expensive lesson I learned in college or anywhere else. These are the intangible things we learn through life that you can't learn in a book, that you can't learn from spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for a useless college degree. I often say, my kids, I don't know if they're going to go to college or not. Learn to be creative, learn to think, learn to strive, learn not to settle. Learn to sell. If you can learn to sell, you don't need a college degree. I know so many people who have this book smarts and this college degree who can't find their way out of a paper bag. That was the number one lesson I learned from my father. Before we move on to the next topic, let's see who's here. Thank you, Gustav. I appreciate that. Michelle, thank you. Dr. Dave, please expand on the Barto van Otterdijk. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Likewise to you. Likewise to you. By the way, we have a little ravine down here this morning, and I don't know if any of you know, but here in northern Arizona, they have something called javelinas. They're like kind of a cross between a wild hog and a pig. And I was sitting here in the back and I was watching them walk through. So if anyone sees any javelinas jump up here, I don't think they can jump, let me know. But love coming to you from here. See the red rocks behind us. I think this is Castle Rock. Right around the corner is Bell Rock. A lot of great energy here. Great energy. Dr. Dave, exactly. I tell my students a similar message frequently. 100%. 100%. Listen, if you are just joining us now, if you're joining us in the replay, I want to challenge you. I want to invite you. I want to implore you. Jump in. Share your first name, your city, your state, your town, your country, your continent, where in the world you're joining us from, and at least one thing you are grateful for today. I'm grateful for that lesson I just shared from my father. What are you grateful for today? Muhammad. Hello, everyone. Just joined. Muhammad, where are you joining us from? Curt was just inviting my good friend to your blog talk. Thank you, Dr. Dave. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Sometimes LinkedIn and StreamYard make it hard to see who's joining. Who else joined us here? Let's see. We got, I see, Dr. Dave. I see what you're doing there with the link. And good morning, Matt. Matt Walls, good morning. How you doing today? Matt, where are you joining us from? And what's at least one thing you're grateful for today? Thank you so much. Coming to you from my back porch here in beautiful Sedona, Arizona. You can see the red rocks over my back shoulder. For those of you who don't know, last year, in the midst of all the craziness going on, my wife and I decided we're not going to get consumed by the crazy. We sold our home, most of our possessions. We hit the road. And people said, well, how do you determine where you go? We went places that were open. Listen, we don't want to endanger anyone, but we also didn't feel like getting caught up in the lockdown mentality, the craziness, the politics, everything that was going on. So we've been traveling around the country, having a freedom adventure with our 4 kids, having a great time. We're here in Sedona. We're settling here for a while, but we've been traveling around beaches, mountains. We were in Austin, Texas. I know some of you joined me in Austin, Texas. We met up, Doug Thompson, Matt Gagnon, and Stephen. So thank you so much for Stephen English. Gosh, it's too early in the morning. So thank you so much. We're here in Sedona, Arizona, having our freedom invention, and we absolutely love it. And guess what? If you're living in a life in which you're not free and fulfilled, listen, it's common, but don't you dare settle for that, because whether you have 20 seconds left in your life or 20 years, why would you want to spend 1 millisecond more without a sense of freedom and fulfillment? You know, I shared that lesson from my father early on. He didn't settle. You shouldn't settle. Don't listen to the scarcity pimps in your life who tell you all the reasons you can't have what you want. And when I say have what you want, I don't mean desires like material stuff. That's not going to give you real meaning in your life. I'm talking about fulfillment, a sense of freedom. And some of you say, well, freedom is selfish. People have actually told me that, because some people have bastardized, the scarcity pimps in our society have bastardized the word freedom. They would make you think that's selfish. There are people who think self-care is selfish. It is absolutely not. Tune them out. Find your signal. What is the life you absolutely actually want to live? Because guess what? Whether you want to believe it or not, you can create your life starting right now. I said this last week, but if you don't like where you're at right now, guess what? That's all on you. Right now is the accumulation or the cumulative effect of all the decisions you've made till now. Now, that may be hard to handle, but guess what is very empowering? Where you're at this afternoon, where you're at tomorrow, where you're at next week and next year will be the sum of the decisions you make right now. It's all about your decisions and your choices. And if you tell yourself all the reasons it can't be done, and guess what? I talk to people every day who want freedom and fulfillment in their life, and they tell me all the reasons they can't get it done. Some people jump in to work with me and jump in with others. Those people who say, I can get it done, I'm going to go get it done. But then there are others who are just gripped with paralysis, maybe because of the programming they've had throughout their life, including the programming they get from the people around them. Oh, I want to start my own business. Well, why would you do that? Health insurance, and you're giving up this and you're giving up that. And we cling to security. If we learned anything from the past year, it's that the security was an illusion. There are so many people who thought their life was going great. The economy was wonderful. I'm in a secure job. And now they're unemployed. They lost their job because of lockdowns, because of COVID, because of whatever. Life is for living. It's not for waiting. It's not for being secure. Now, that may sound irresponsible to you, and I get it. I get it. I was there too. I was stuck in a job, anxiety attack, 60 pounds heavier. I wasn't being the father, the husband that I wanted to be. And this segues into the next topic. Finally, I realized that I hit about 38, 39, 40 years old, and I realized that I was going through life like a pinball, bouncing from temporary objective to temporary objective without a clear life vision, that guiding star where I wanted to go, that point on the map. So determining your life vision, crafting your life vision is important, not so you just know what to say yes to, but what you know what to say no to. We're going to be working on life vision in my Freedom Business Blueprint Bootcamp. Starts in September. It's virtual. If you're interested, send me a message. Put Blueprint here. And if you want to learn more, guess what? July 1st, Thursday, July 1st at 7 p.m., I'm going to be having a webinar. You can learn all about the Freedom Business Blueprint. And a big part of that is defining your life vision. And some people say, well, I'm not going to jump in with you, Curt, because I don't know what my vision is. Guess what? That's exactly why we're holding the boot camp. Coming up with your own life vision is tough because you're in the trees chopping down, you're in the forest chopping down trees. Have someone help you above the trees, helping you look at the whole forest. That's why people jump in. But don't think you can't craft that life vision. Someone just told me, I don't know if I have that life vision within me. Everyone has that vision within you. It may be tough. It may take some work. It may take peeling away the bullshit scarcity programming that you've had since you were 1 year old, but you can get it done. I know because I've done it. I know because over the past few years, I've helped hundreds of people to do it. So don't sell yourself short. Craft that life vision. And I'm putting a link in right now for my webinar, July 1st. So I just put it in LinkedIn. Dr. Dave, exactly. Mohammed, happy Father's Day, everyone. Grateful for God. to have with me right now. Thank you for joining us. Absolutely. That's wonderful. Let's see who else is joining us right now. We have Gustav. I'm going to update this. Again, if you're joining us live, and some people are joining us right in the middle of this broadcast, share your name, your city, your state, your town, where in the world you're joining us from, and at least one thing you are grateful for today. We have people around the world joining us, and it is wonderful. We have Canada. We have the US. Let's see. We have Estonia here. Mohammed, where are you joining us from? I'm just looking online to see who's joining us. Visiting Pakistan. Thank you, Mohammed. People around the world are joining us. Welcome here onto my back porch. Well, I would love to take your questions right now. And again, go to kurtzblog.com. You can subscribe every time we update the blog. You get it in your inbox. There's also a post there now where you can sign up for our upcoming private podcast project, Fear, Love, and Creativity. Learn the best way, the best state, the best emotional state in which you can unleash your creative flow. If you're joining the replay right now, thank you. I appreciate it. Still share your name, your city, your state, your town, where in the your world you're joining us from. One piece of gratitude. We started off by, I shared the lesson from my dad who in his mid-50s, in the mid-80s, lost his job, got a newspaper route, but didn't settle, reinvented himself as a management consultant, started his own company, and went on to have a career for 25 plus years of freedom and fulfillment. It's the number one lesson I learned from my dad. I wanted to share with you today because I don't want you to settle anymore. I don't want you to settle, and I want you to realize that the coolest thing about life is that you can create it. We also talked about your life vision. That point on the map, that guiding star. Listen, life is going to knock you on your ass. It's just going to happen. But when you have that life vision, you can get up, dust yourself off. There's multiple paths, but you see where your life vision is and you keep moving forward. That life vision helps you know what to say no to, what to say yes to. Because I know there's so many people, I've been working with people and they're like, well, Curt, should I become a coach? Should I take this opportunity? And my first response is, I don't know. Does it fit your life vision? Well, I don't have a life vision. Then how can you make decisions if you haven't put that pin in the map so you know where you go? You know, in the old days, we had paper maps. We couldn't cheat with GPS and Google Maps. So you had to lay out a paper map, put that pin in the map, and reverse engineer it. It's the same way with life. You put that pin in the map, you reverse engineer it to put together your outcomes for every year, every month, every week, every day. There's so many people who come to me and they're unproductive. I don't know what to do. Because you're trying to throw shit against the wall to see what sticks. You're trying to move toward your vision. You got to define that vision and reverse engineer. That key is reverse engineering. And if you're my client, if you've been to my speeches, if you read my book, you know reverse engineering is probably the most often repeated phrase I use because so many people just throw stuff. Put the pin in the map, reverse engineer it. It will be so much easier, so much freer for you, and so much more fulfilling. If you want to learn more, if you're someone who built a business, or meant to build a business to have that freedom, but you built a prison instead, July 1st, 7 p.m. Eastern, join my Freedom Business Blueprint webinar. There's a link in the comments, sign up. If you're someone who's unemployed, if you're someone who's in a 9-to-5 who wants to build that freedom business, and maybe it's just you've had that paralysis and you've always wanted to do it, you've always been thinking about it, but something's holding you back, go to the link in the comments. Sign up for the Freedom Business Blueprint webinar, July 1st, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go through how to build that blueprint. Hell, just start building the runway. You know, 3.5 years ago, I woke up on a Tuesday morning, I fired all my clients and I shut down my 7-figure agency. I don't want you to have to do that. I was in denial for years. I hadn't built that runway. At least start building the runway so you have choices, so that you're in control of the plane. So when it comes time to fly, that runway is already built. It's a lot easier than just jumping like I did. So if you want to learn how, you want to learn that process, you want to learn how to put together that freedom business blueprint, take a look in the comments, click on the link. If you don't see the link, just comment blueprint in the comments and we'll get you signed up. All right, with the remaining time we have, I'd love to answer your questions. Thank you, Dr. Dave. Have a wonderful rest of your Father's Day. Any questions that you have, I'm here. And if I don't see any questions, I'll leave. I'll finish my coffee and leave. Anyone have any questions they'd like to share? And again, if you haven't already done this, please share your city, your state, your town, your first name, where in the world you're joining us from. Got a lot of great comments. We have Pakistan in the house. We got Canada in the house. We got Houston, Texas in the house. We got Kansas. We got Connecticut. Michelle, where did you say you're from? Matt Walls, Oklahoma. Anyone else joining us? I know Joe Peachy is from Orlando. He had to run to a training. The guy's a machine doing a training today. Justin. Hey, Justin. Thank you for joining us again. Glad you could join us. I'm here. Thankful for my girls and my health. Love it. So if you have any questions, Michelle's from Houston, Texas. That's right. Mark Stern, you're from Brooklyn, right? New York. Mark, you and I spoke several years ago, if I recall. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today, joining me. So since it's Father's Day, any tips on being an awesome dad? Yeah. Be present with your kids. Be present with your kids. I have a relative who was so focused. He had 4 kids. He was so focused on putting $1 million in the bank. He would tell people for years his goal was to put $1 million in the bank for each kid. And he thought that was being a good dad. And in doing so, he was so focused on that goal that he's estranged from his kids. Listen, your kids don't want your money. They want you. Your kids don't want your money. They want to be loved. Your kids don't want your money. They want to be paid attention to, not just lectured all the time. Listen to them. They want some significance from you as a father. And you may tell yourself, I'm working 20 hours a day just to feed them. That's not what your kids need. They need you. They need your attention. So if you're a father, if you're a mother, show your kids attention. Listen to them. Don't get so caught up in the bullshit of being busy and then convincing yourself that you're doing it for your family. Because I guarantee you'll lose your family. I did it. I wasn't an epic dad. I wasn't an epic husband. So I shut down my business. And you know what? It was the best thing I ever did in terms of being a father. And when I say be present with your kids, I don't just mean physically present. I mean mentally present. So when you're with them on a Saturday morning, you're not focused on the Monday morning conference call. So when you're with them at dinner at night, you're actually listening to them and you're mentally present, not thinking about the call the next day. Life is more than your bullshit conference call. Life is more than your emails. Life is more than that meeting. Life is more than your work. And I was talking about this last week, but if you're someone who's seeking work-life balance, take that term work-life balance, throw it in the toilet, burn it. There's no such thing. There's just life. There's not work and life. You got to align the 3 facets of your life, your relationships, your self-care, and work. Your relationships are so important. And if you define your work clearly and then shoehorn in your relationships and self-care, you're going to hit a wall and you're not doing a service to your kids, whether you're a father or a mom. It's Father's Day, so we're talking about fathers. Thoughts on building a network marketing business? I'm not into network marketing. There are people who are better at that than I am. But what I would say is the principles of marketing are the same. I don't care what the business is. And I often hear from people, oh, well, you don't know this business. Guess what? I know communications. I've been doing it for 25 years. What's the impact that whatever you offer on your ideal clients? Have you identified who your ideal clients are? Not just who need what you want, because I'm sure you're so smart and you know exactly what your clients need. No, what do they want? What do they want from you? And then you reverse engineer that, right? To create a 1-sentence impact story about what they want. It's not your bells, whistles, features. Two broadcasts ago, we talked about verbal vomit. It's not it's not how special you are. It's not your background. So whether it's network marketing or any other business, if you verbally vomit on your clients and you go to them talking about your bells, your whistles, your features, your background, how special you are, you're not going to win it. You're not going to win them as a client because they want to know what's in it for me. So what do they want from you? Start from there. That sounds so basic, but I will tell you the majority of business owners struggle because they haven't done that. So, well, listen, it is 6:31. I want to thank all of you who've joined us live. And I want to thank all of you joining us in the replay. To all you dads out there, happy Father's Day. Be present mentally and physically with your kids. Gustav had a great question. How can you be a dad? Being mentally and physically present, paying attention, showing love. That's what your kids want. That's what they need. And if you're joining the replay, thank you. Still join us in name, city, state, town, what in the world. You're at least one thing you're grateful for. And I want to thank you for joining us today for another Back Porch Session, Father's Day edition. And with that, I'm going to be signing off. Have a wonderful Father's Day. We'll talk to you soon.